The face of Sandor Clegane carries two separate histories across its surface. One half bears smooth, pale skin, the mark of a man who might have walked through knightly ballads untouched by ruin. The other is a wasteland of seared flesh, twisted and glossy, a gift from his own brother when he was no more than a small, curious boy. The world names him the Hound. It sees a brute, a killer, a Lannister hound bound only to coin and cruelty. It never sees the child who died screaming above a bed of burning coals. It never sees the man who spent a lifetime burying that child beneath layers of scorn and spilled blood. Sansa Stark arrives in King's Landing soft and bright, steeped in stories of true knights and gentle, courtly love. She enters the city as a hostage of the crown, but she becomes something far more profound to Sandor Clegane. She is a mirror held to the last dying embers of his own discarded innocence. His defense of her never stems from mere pity. It grows from a desperate, unspoken attempt to salvage the part of himself that burned away decades before. Hers is the story of how radical empathy can pierce the thickest armor of cynicism and turn a broken killer into a secret guardian willing to die for the last faint light in a darkening world. Sandor Clegane was not born a monster. He began as a quick, curious boy born to a house sworn to the Lannisters. Ordinary childhood hopes stirred in him, the same quiet dreams of respect and purpose that live in most young boys. Those hopes turned to ash on the day his older brother Gregor caught him playing with a discarded toy knight. Gregor did not scold him or push him away. He seized Sandor by the back of the neck and pressed half his face into a brazier of glowing coals. He held him there while the boy screamed and struggled, while his skin melted and blistered and blackened. Their father never punished Gregor for the act. He told the world the boy had burned himself by accident. He buried the truth to protect the honor of the family name. That day taught Sandor Clegane the first and most enduring truth of his life. Honor is a lie. Family loyalty is a lie. Chivalry is nothing but a pretty tale told to fool the weak. The wound never truly heals. The scar on his face fades but never vanishes, and the wound beneath it festers still. The mark becomes both a permanent reminder of the world's cruelty and a mask he wears to keep the world at a distance. Sandor leans into the fear people feel when they look at him. He grows tall and strong and brutal with every passing year. He becomes a fighter, a killer, a man who asks no quarter and gives none. He serves the Lannisters not out of loyalty, but out of cold, unblinking pragmatism. They pay him well. They give him leave to vent his rage on whoever deserves it or whoever does not. He tells himself he cares about nothing and no one. He tells himself the world is nothing but meat and blood and power, and anyone who thinks otherwise is weak. This mindset is his defense mechanism. Expectation of nothing good from the world leaves no room for disappointment. Burial of every soft, vulnerable part of himself removes the chance of another wound that cuts as deep as the first. Hatred of knighthood forms the core of his cynicism. Gregor Clegane, the man who burned him alive as a child, is anointed a knight in the light of the Seven. He swears oaths of honor and protection, then goes on to rape and murder and burn entire villages to ash. He even wears the white cloak of the King's Guard for a time. Sandor sees every part of this hypocrisy. He sees knights who lie and cheat and prey on the weak. He sees lords who wrap their greed in words of duty and piety. He sees a world where the worst men wear the finest robes and speak the holiest words. He rejects all of it completely. He refuses to be a knight. He refuses to pretend he is anything but what he is. He speaks with brutal, unvarnished honesty. He mocks every pretense, every lie, every show of false virtue. All of this keeps the world at arm's length. All of this ensures no one gets close enough to see that the little boy from the fire still lives somewhere inside him, bruised and angry and utterly alone. Sansa Stark's arrival in King's Landing becomes the ultimate threat to this carefully constructed world view. She is everything he has spent decades convincing himself does not exist. She is gentle, she is polite. She believes in true knights and fair maidens and the inherent goodness of noble men. She has not yet learned that the world rewards cruelty far more often than kindness. She has not yet been broken by the machinery of power. Sandor scoffs at her at first. He calls her little bird, the word sharp, with dismissive scorn. He mocks her songs and her dreams and her soft, sheltered view of life. He expects her to break, to scream, to turn bitter like everyone else who lands in the capital. But she does not break, not at first. She carries herself with quiet grace, even when surrounded on all sides by enemies. She speaks with courtesy, even to those who wish her harm. For a man who has spent a lifetime convincing himself all people are rotten at the core, her goodness is not mere naivety. It is a challenge. It opens the first crack in the dark wall he has built around his soul. The bond between them grows not from open affection at first, but from quiet, unacknowledged recognition. He sees in her the boy he used to be before the fire, before the lies, before the blood. He sees a person who still believes the world can be better than it is. He sees a version of innocence he thought had burned away forever. The pull is subconscious at first. He does not choose to watch over her. He simply finds himself doing it, again and again, without conscious thought. He lingers near her when danger draws close. He speaks up when Joffrey's cruelty grows too sharp, too reckless. He cannot explain the impulse to himself. He calls it weakness. He tells himself he is growing soft in his old age. But he cannot stop. Something deep and long buried in him refuses to let that small light go out. Their early interactions hum with tension and quiet, unspoken subversion. Sandor speaks to her roughly, his tone edged with mockery. He taunts her about her father's fate. He tells her there are no true knights, no happy endings, no mercy in the Game of Thrones. He wants to break her illusions. He wants to make her see the world as it really is before it chews her up and spits her out. But care hides beneath the cruelty, thin but persistent. He warns her of dangers no one else will mention. He tells her how to survive Joffrey's rages. He gives her small, hard pieces of advice no one else dares speak aloud. Sansa never flinches from him. She never screams at the sight of his scar. She never calls him monster. She listens. She speaks to him with the same courtesy she extends to everyone else. This disarms him more thoroughly than any sword ever could. No one has treated him like a full person in so long. Everyone sees the Hound. She sees the man beneath the scar. The riot of King's Landing marks the first clear turning point. Years of war and royal neglect leave the small folk starving and desperate. They rise up in anger, storming the streets, attacking nobles, dragging women and children from their horses. Sansa is separated from her guards in the chaos. A mob surrounds her, hungry and violent, and full of rage at the crown. She is alone and terrified, and for one long moment it seems she will be torn apart. Then Sandor appears. He cuts through the crowd like a wolf through sheep. He kills without hesitation, his sword rising and falling in steady, brutal rhythm. He drives the mob back with steel and fury and the sheer force of his presence. He pulls her to her feet and gets her back to the Red Keep alive. He does not boast about the deed. He does not demand gratitude. He just does it, rough and quiet, as if it is the most natural thing in the world. In that moment he is not the Lannister dog. He is not the Hound. He is a man who has decided, without a single word, that this girl will not be destroyed by the same city that destroyed him. The Battle of the Blackwater pushes this quiet bond to its breaking point. Wildfire explodes across the bay in a storm of sickly green light. Green fire consumes ships and men and the very surface of the water. The stench of burning flesh hangs thick in the air. For Sandor, the fire is not just a weapon of war. It is a ghost dragged straight from his childhood. It yanks him back to the brazier, to the agony, to the sound of his own screaming. He snaps under the weight of the memory. He deserts his post. He walks away from the battle, from the Lannisters, from everything he has ever known. Before he leaves the city, he goes to Sansa's chambers. He is drunk and shaken, raw with a pain he has not shown anyone in decades. He offers to take her with him. He offers to carry her home to Winterfell, to get her away from King's Landing, away from Joffrey, away from all of it. Sansa refuses. She is afraid. She does not trust him fully. She does not believe she can survive on the road with a wanted man. But she does not scream for the guards. She does not spit on him or call him a coward. She looks at him, and she sees the wounded boy beneath the scarred man. She speaks to him softly. She does not condemn him for running. In that moment, Sandor is forced to confront the humanity he has spent so long burying. He has spent years telling himself he is nothing but a killer. But here he is, risking everything to save a girl who owes him nothing. He has spent years believing all goodness is a lie. But here is this girl, looking at him with kindness even when he is at his most broken. Protecting her has become more than a passing impulse. It has become a surrogate for saving the boy he used to be. If she can survive this place unbroken, then maybe some small part of him can survive too. Sansa Stark's greatest weapon is not a sword. It is her radical empathy. It is her ability to see the humanity in people everyone else has written off. This quality is often mistaken for weakness. It is often dismissed as naive girlishness. But it holds far more power than it appears. It can break through armor no blade can pierce. For Sandor Clegane, it acts as a slow, steady solvent on the anger that has held him together for most of his life. It seeps into the cracks of his cynicism and slowly dissolves them from the inside out. Their exchanges are small and easy to miss against the louder violence of the court. She thanks him when he helps her, even when his help is gruff and unacknowledged. She asks him questions about himself, not out of obligation, but out of genuine curiosity. She does not look away from his scar. She meets his eyes when she speaks to him, as if he is just another man, not a monster everyone fears. These tiny acts of decency hit him harder than any physical blow. He has spent decades surrounded by people who flatter him to his face and spit on him behind his back. He has spent decades being treated like a weapon, not a person. Sansa treats him like a person. That is something he does not know how to fight. A quiet shift settles into the way he speaks to her over time. The mockery fades. The harsh edge softens, just a little. He still calls her little bird, but the word no longer carries the same scorn. It becomes a term of quiet, unacknowledged affection. He stops trying to break her illusions. He starts trying to protect them in his own rough, unpolished way. He steps in when Joffrey tries to humiliate her in the throne room. He speaks up when the king commands the Kingsguard to strike her. He never does it openly. He frames his words as practical advice for the king. He says that beating a lady in public does nothing for the crown's dignity. He hides his mercy behind words of pragmatism, so no one will see how much he cares. This is the strange alchemy of their relationship. Sansa does not fight him. She does not argue with him. She does not try to change him. She simply is. She's kind and polite and unafraid to look at him. That is enough. It disarms the Hound persona more thoroughly than any physical combat ever could. He has spent his whole life fighting. He knows how to block a sword. He knows how to break a man's jaw. He knows how to win every battle of blood and bone. But he has no defense against kindness. He has no strategy for pity. He has spent so long expecting cruelty from everyone that simple decency catches him completely off guard. It slips past all his defenses and touches the part of him he thought was dead. The mockery once laced into his name for her little bird persona fades into quiet, unspoken vigilance against Joffrey's sadistic whims. What he once dismissed as the foolish naivety of a sheltered noble girl slowly reveals itself as the last flicker of goodness left in the rotting heart of the city. A lifetime of unshakable cynicism, forged in fire and blood, begins to crack open to the faint possibility that something in this world might still be worth protecting. Defying the Lannisters to protect Sansa Stark is no trivial choice. It is a death sentence, if discovered. Sandor is a sworn sword of the crown. He is bound by duty to obey the king's every command. To intervene on behalf of an enemy house's daughter is treason. It means losing his position, his wealth, his safety. It means losing his head. He knows this. He understands the full weight of the risk. That is what makes his choice so meaningful. He does it anyway. His acts of protection are small and carefully hidden, at least at first. He does not draw his sword against the king. He does not openly defy the Lannisters. He works in the margins. He softens Joffrey's orders when he can. He gives Sansa quiet warnings when danger is coming. He makes sure she is not left alone with people who would hurt her. These are small acts, but each one is a quiet rebellion. Each one is a choice to put her safety above his duty and above his own survival. Each one chips away at the identity he has built for himself. He is no longer just the Hound, a dog who does as he is told. He is a man making his own choices, for his own reasons. The contrast between his desertion at the Blackwater and his final offer to Sansa reveals the full depth of his change. His flight from the battle is an act of escape. He runs from his trauma. He runs from his duty. He runs from everything with no destination and no purpose. It is the act of a man who has given up entirely. His offer to take Sansa away is something else entirely. It is an act of purpose. It is an act of hope. He is not running from something anymore. He is running toward something. He is trying to save something pure, something unbroken, something that reminds him of the boy he used to be. For the first time in his life, he is not just surviving. He is trying to do good. This is his first true act of rebellion against the system that broke him. The Lannisters took him in when he had nowhere else to go. They gave him a purpose, even if that purpose was only to kill and intimidate. They made him their weapon. For years he let them. He accepted the role they gave him. He accepted the world as they presented it, cruel and unfair and ruled by power. But Sansa makes him question all of that. She makes him wonder if there is another way to live. She makes him wonder if he can be more than a dog. When he chooses her safety over his duty to the crown, he is rejecting everything the Lannisters stand for. He is rejecting the man they made him. He is reaching for something better, even if he does not dare to name it out loud. He never gets credit for any of it. Sansa never fully understands how much he risked for her. No one sings songs about the Hound's secret acts of mercy. That is part of the tragedy and part of the quiet beauty. He does not do it for praise. He does not do it for honor. He does it because he cannot help himself. He does it because somewhere deep beneath the scars and the anger and the blood, there is still a boy who knows what it feels like to be hurt and alone. He does not want that girl to feel the same way. He does not want the darkness to win completely. Sandor Clegane's journey does not end in King's Landing. He leaves the city and he wanders. He falls in with the Brotherhood without banners. He fights. He suffers. He nearly dies. He slowly, painfully, walks a long, winding path toward redemption. None of this would have been possible without Sansa Stark. She is the first crack in his armor. She is the first person who makes him believe he might be more than a monster. The bond they share in King's Landing plants a seed. That seed grows, slow and stubborn, through all the blood and hardship that comes after. His later fight for the living, his stand against the dead, his final confrontation with his brother Gregor, all trace their roots back to that quiet choice in King's Landing. Once he decided to protect one innocent girl, he could not go back to being the man who only cared about himself. Once he allowed himself to feel hope for one person, he could not fully shut it out again. The cynic never fully goes away. The Hound never fully dies. But there is another part of him now, a part that believes in something, a part that fights for something more than coin or rage. Sansa's survival becomes a quiet validation of his secret hope. She does not break. She survives King's Landing. She survives Ramsay Bolton. She survives every horror the world throws at her. She grows strong and wise and hard, but she never loses her capacity for kindness. She becomes Lady of Winterfell, and then Queen in the North. She becomes the sort of ruler who protects the vulnerable, who remembers what it feels like to be powerless. The light that Sandor tried to preserve does not go out. It burns brighter. It becomes a beacon for other people. In a way, he succeeds. He saves the innocence he thought was lost. He saves it not by keeping her a child forever, but by giving her the chance to grow into something greater. Their relationship is never a romance. It is something rarer and deeper. It is the bond between two people who see each other at their worst and choose to be kind anyway. It is the bond between a broken man and the girl who reminded him he was still human. It is the pivotal catalyst that transforms a brutal nihilist back into a man with a purpose. Sandor Clegane never becomes a true knight, not in the way the songs describe. He never gets a white cloak. He never gets a title. He never gets the praise of the realm, but he becomes something better. He becomes a man who chooses good, even when the world has given him every reason to choose evil. He becomes a man who redeems himself, not through grand gestures, but through small, quiet choices made one day at a time. That is the lasting legacy of the Hound and the Little Bird. The world remembers Sandor Clegane as a killer. It remembers his scar and his sword and his terrible temper. It forgets the quiet mercy. It forgets the secret protection. It forgets that the man everyone feared once risked everything to save a girl no one else would bother to save. But the truth remains. Redemption does not always come with fanfare. It does not always come with a crown or a song. Sometimes it comes in the dark. Sometimes it comes in the form of a scarred man standing guard over a girl because she is the last thing worth saving in a world that has forgotten how to be good. Sometimes the bravest thing a broken man can do is let himself care again.